The HR director slid the piece of paper across the polished conference table, like she was dealing a losing hand in poker. Clara, congratulations. After careful deliberation by executive leadership, we're moving you from technical director to administrative support. Your new role will involve mail distribution and document coordination. She paused, letting the words land. 32 years old, tailored suit, expensive watch, and the kind of smile that made you want to check your wallet. Annual compensation, she continued, tapping her manicured finger on the bolded number at the bottom of the page, will be adjusted to $60,000. I stared at the number. 60,000. My condo's property tax was 32. My car payment was 12. My mother's assisted living facility cost 48. They weren't just demoting me, they were trying to make me leave. I laughed. It wasn't a bitter laugh. It wasn't even angry. It was the kind of laugh you let out when you finally understand a joke you've been waiting 3 years to hear. Around the open plan office, head snapped toward glass-walled conference room. My team, the ones who'd stayed, pretended to study their monitors, but I could see their shoulders tense, their eyes darting sideways. They knew what I was worth. I'd built Novasphere's entire cloud infrastructure from scratch. 78 million in annual recurring revenue, 230 employees. A company that had been 15 people in a shared WeWork when I joined. Something funny? Director Zhang's smile evaporated. She'd expected tears, probably. Or rage. Maybe desperate pleading with a side of, I have a mortgage. Just thinking, I said, uncapping my fountain pen, about how much this reminds me of my divorce. I flipped the page over and wrote in bold letters across the back. Resignation. Effective immediately. I resign. The conference room went absolutely still. Someone's coffee machine beeped in the distance. A phone rang and went unanswered. You can't be serious. Zhang stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. Clara, think about what you're doing. The market is brutal right now. At your age. My age. I capped the pen, a Montblanc my grandmother had given me when I got my first real engineering job, and slid it into my jacket pocket. I'm 38. I'm not dead yet. 38 in tech is practically retirement. She shot back, recovering quickly. Who's going to hire a woman pushing 40 who walked out on a 6-figure role? I gathered my personal items into a cardboard box, a small jade plant I'd grown from a cutting, a-framed photo of my mother and me at her 65th birthday. A single coffee mug that said, World's okayest engineer. Let me give you some free advice, Director Zhang. I looked her dead in the eye. The next time you try to force someone out, maybe make sure they don't own 51% of the company. Her face went white, not pale. White, like someone had drained every drop of blood from her cheeks. What? That's right. I tucked the box under my arm. I'm the majority shareholder. Robert Vance's little restructuring wasn't a power play. It was a temper tantrum from a man who doesn't know how to read a term sheet. I walked out of the conference room, through the silent office, past the faces of people who'd known me for years. Steve from marketing mouthed, holy shit. Maya from QA looked like she was about to cry. At the elevator, I pressed the button and heard Zhang's heels clicking behind me. Clara, wait, we can negotiate. The doors opened. I stepped inside. Actually, I said, pressing the lobby button, I don't think we can. The doors closed on her face. I didn't cry in the lobby. I didn't cry in my car either. I called my mother. Mom, I said, I quit. Her voice crackled through the Bluetooth. Did they finally figure out you're the one who fixes everything? Something like that. Good. You were working too hard anyway. Are you coming for dinner? I made your grandmother's braised pork. I'll be there in an hour. Driving through afternoon traffic, I let my mind wander back to 3 years ago, when we were small. When I was just another engineer who happened to own a chunk of the company because I'd taken equity instead of salary during the lean years. Then came the capital infusion. Then came Robert Vance, fresh from Harvard Business School, with his vision and his synergy and his complete inability to understand our core product. He'd been right about one thing, though. He'd said Novasphere needed new energy. He just didn't realize that new energy was going to come from me leaving. I pulled out my phone at a red light and sent a text to an unsaved number. Asterisk, I'm free. Asterisk. 3 seconds later, my phone buzzed. Asterisk, finally. I've been waiting 3 years for you to say that. Dinner tonight? I have a fresh batch of sea bass. Asterisk. I smiled. My phone buzzed again. Asterisk, bring your grandmother's recipe. I want to see if I can beat it. Asterisk. Peter Chin owned a tiny restaurant tucked away in an industrial park that nobody could find unless they knew exactly where to look. 3 tables, no sign, and a waiting list that stretched 6 months. That's what happened when you were a James Beard winner who'd gotten tired of the spotlight. He emerged from the kitchen in his apron, wiping his hands on a towel. 56 years old, gray temples, and the kind of quiet confidence that came from knowing you were the best in the city at what you did. You actually did it. He set down a plate of perfectly seared sea bass. I didn't think you had it in you. I picked up my chopsticks. You told me to leave 3 years ago. I told you to leave 6 months after Robert arrived. He sat down across from me, but you were stubborn. You wanted to protect your people. I wanted to protect my investment. Same thing. He poured us both glasses of sake. So, what's your play? I took a sip. The sake was smooth cold, exactly how I liked it. I'm going to watch them burn. Peter raised an eyebrow. That's not like you. It's not like me to be humiliated in front of my team, either. I set down the glass. Robert doesn't know I'm the majority shareholder. He thinks the equity is spread across the founding team. He's going to keep running the company his way, and his way is going to destroy it. Unless you stop him. Unless I let him destroy it first. Peter was quiet for a long moment, then he nodded slowly. That's cold, Clara. That's business. I cut into the sea base. They've been trying to push me out for 18 months. 18 months of listening to Robert's optimization suggestions that would literally break the product. 18 months of watching him surround himself with yes men who don't understand the architecture. And now he's going to find out exactly how fragile his systems are. I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app, and watched the balances scroll past. 1.3 million in liquid assets, another 2.7 in investment accounts. I'd been making $280K a year at Novosphere when you counted bonuses and stock dividends. The $60K salary offer hadn't just been insulting. It had been designed to break me. What Robert didn't realize was that I'd been planning my exit strategy for months. Every critical system I'd built had a kill switch, not malicious, just dormant. Undocumented features that only I knew about. Features that would start failing exactly 3 weeks after my departure. I wasn't going to sabotage the company. I was just going to let it fail naturally. My mother lived in a small assisted living facility in the suburbs. Alzheimer's early onset. She'd been there since I was 32. We'd moved her when she started forgetting her own address. Clara, her face lit up when I walked through the door. You look thin. Are you eating properly? I'm eating plenty, Mum. Liar. She shuffled into her tiny kitchen and pulled out a container of braised pork. I made this morning, before I forgot. I took the container, my throat tight. Some days she remembered. Some days she didn't. Did you quit that awful place? I did. Good. She nodded firmly. Your father always said work should make you happy. If it doesn't, leave. My father had been a civil engineer. He died when I was 22, leaving my mother with a small life insurance policy and a lot of memories. He also said to never trust a man who wears more product in his hair than his wife. I left. Robert definitely violates that rule. See, she patted my cheek. Your father was a smart man. I ate the braised pork while she told me about her new friend, Margaret, who'd won the facility's bingo tournament 3 weeks in a row. She talked about the garden, the new nurse with a kind smile, the terrible food on Tuesdays. She was having a good day. I treasured everyone. I got back to my condo at 9. The place felt enormous and empty, even though I'd lived here for 6 years. I bought it with my first major equity vest. 1,800 square feet, floor-to-ceiling windows, a view of the river. I thought it would feel like success. It just felt lonely. I opened my laptop and checked my inbox. 15 messages from various people at Novosphere, all variations on the same theme. Asterisk, Clara, what happened? Are you okay? Asterisk. Asterisk, is it true you're leaving? Asterisk. Asterisk, please tell me you're joking. Asterisk. I scrolled past them all until I found the one I was looking for. It was from Maya. Asterisk, Director Jean just announced you're being replaced by Robert's cousin from consulting. Someone who's never written a line of code in his life. We're all trying not to panic. Asterisk. I wrote back quickly. Asterisk, don't panic. Just document everything. I'll be in touch. Asterisk. I closed the laptop. I had a plan. Had been building it for months, actually. Backup servers. Hidden repositories. A small army of friends in the industry who'd quietly been helping me prepare. Robert Vance thought he'd won. He'd just handed me the keys to his own destruction. Tomorrow, I'd start making calls. Tonight, I'd just sit here and enjoy the quiet. The phone buzzed again. Peter. Asterisk, you sure about this? Once it starts, there's no stopping it. Asterisk. I typed back. Asterisk, I'm sure. He made it personal. You don't make it personal with someone who owns a controlling stake in your company. Asterisk. And you don't let an amateur play in your sandbox, Peter replied. Asterisk, especially when the amateur thinks he knows everything. Asterisk. I poured myself a glass of whiskey and raised it to the skyline. To being underestimated, I said aloud. The city blinked back at me, indifferent. It was going to remember this. Maybe not the buildings, but the people they would remember. I knew that much. Because this wasn't just about revenge. This was about making sure the next time someone tried to push a woman out of a room she'd built herself, they'd think twice. Novosphere was mine. It was time they remembered who really built it. Chapter 2. 3 days. 3 days of silence. 3 days of sleeping in, reading books, and watching the afternoon light shift across my apartment floor like a lazy cat. I'd forgotten what it felt like to not be anxious. On the 4th morning, my phone started buzzing at 6:30 a.m. I ignored it. It buzzed again at 6:45. Again at 6:52. By 7, there were 37 missed calls. I made coffee, sat down at my kitchen island, and watched the number climb. The first call was from Steve in marketing. Clara, the system crashed. The whole thing. All customer portals down. We're getting calls from... Not my problem anymore, Steve. I hung up. Another call. Maya. Clara, please. The backend is completely frozen. Robert's cousin tried to optimize the database schema yesterday, and now nothing works. We're losing 40,000 an hour. Document everything, I said. Screenshots, logs, emails. Send it all to me. I hung up. The calls kept coming. Robert's executive assistant, the VP of sales, the head of client relations. I let them all go to voicemail. At 8:15, Director Jean called. I picked up. Clara, we need you back. There's been a... Director Zhang. I kept my voice calm and pleasant. Did you just say you need me? A pause. I could practically hear her teeth grinding. Yes, for the good of the company. For the good of the company, I repeated. Interesting, because 3 days ago, the same company offered me $60,000 to sort mail. That was a mistake, a miscommunication. Robert didn't approve the $60,000 offer? I cut in. So you made that decision on your own? Another pause. Longer this time. I was acting on instructions. I took a sip of coffee. So Robert did approve it, which means Robert wanted me gone, and now Robert wants me back. Is that about right? Clara, please don't, we're hemorrhaging clients. Sentinel Group alone is threatening to terminate their contract, $300 million in annual revenue. You built that relationship. You're the only one who can. Director Zhang, I said, setting down my mug. I'm going to give you some advice now because I'm generous like that. Please. Next time you try to destroy someone's career, make sure you understand what they actually do for the company first. I hung up. She called back. I let it go to voicemail. So, did everyone else. By noon, I'd received 62 messages from Novosphere employees. I replied to 5 of them. My core team, people I trusted. The message was always the same. Asterisk, keep your heads down. Don't admit anything. Forward me everything they send you. And for God's sake, don't let Robert's cousin touch any more of the infrastructure. Asterisk. Maya wrote back instantly. Asterisk, too late. He already broke the load balancers. We had a partial outage at 9 a.m. that affected 30% of our clients. Sent you the logs. Asterisk. I opened the logs and scrolled through them. My jaw tightened. The damage was worse than I'd expected. Robert's cousin, some 24-year-old with a degree in business informatics, had tried to streamline the database architecture by removing 3 critical indices. 3 indices I'd written years ago to prevent exactly this kind of catastrophic lockup. Now the system was essentially choking on its own data. I could fix it. I could log in, revert the changes, and have everything back online in 45 minutes. I did not log in. Instead, I opened my personal laptop and pulled up the backup server I'd been running in a private cloud for the past 6 months. Every line of code, every configuration file, every system design document I'd ever written for Novosphere existed in duplicate. And I've been using that backup to run a parallel instance of the entire infrastructure for the past 4 months. Not out of malice. Out of insurance. I'd known Robert would eventually break something. I just hadn't known he'd break everything at once. At 2 p.m., my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. I answered. Clara. The voice was deep, confident male. It's Robert Vance. Robert. I kept my voice neutral. To what do I owe the pleasure? I'm calling to apologize. He sounded almost sincere, almost. The situation with your compensation was handled poorly. Director Zhang exceeded her authority. I've already terminated her. I almost laughed out loud. Zhang was a scapegoat, and everyone knew it. That's very decisive of you, Robert. Clara, the company needs you. I need you. We're facing a serious technical crisis, and you're the only person who understands the full architecture. I was the only person who understood the full architecture. I stood up and walked to the window. But I'm not an employee anymore. I'm not even a consultant. You fired me, Robert. We didn't fire you. You resigned. After you offered me $60,000 to do a job that I previously did for $280. I turned around. That's constructive dismissal, and you know it. But I'm not going to sue you. I'm not going to do anything. Then what are you going to do? I smiled. I'm going to watch. The call lasted another 4 minutes. Robert tried persuasion, then threats, then a bizarre mix of both that made him sound like a man who'd never been told no in his entire privileged life. By the end, he was almost pleading. Clara, I'm asking you as a professional. We have families depending on this company, employees who've been here for years. You should have thought about that before you let your cousin dismantle my architecture, I said. But since you brought up the employees, I'll make you a deal. What kind of deal? Publicly acknowledge that the current crisis is the direct result of your management decisions. Publish a full apology on the company intranet, and resign. Silence. You want me to resign, he said slowly. I want you to admit you were wrong. That's the price of my help. And if I refuse, then I'll wait. I sat down again. I have time, Robert, I have money. I have a backup of everything I've ever built for Novosphere. You, on the other hand, have a company that's losing $3 million a day, a board that's going to start asking questions, and a career that's going to be very short if this keeps up. You can't just walk away. You have a fiduciary duty. I'm not on the board, Robert. I'm not even an employee. And unlike you, I never signed a non-compete. I paused. Oh, and one more thing. What? When you check your bank accounts later, you'll notice that the transfer for my last payroll cycle has been reversed. I'm returning everything they paid me for the last year. Every dollar. You can't. Actually, I can. It's called return of compensation under duress. My lawyer is very excited about it. Good luck with the crisis, Robert. I'm sure you'll figure it out. I hung up. Then I opened my email and sent a message to the entire Novosphere engineering team, all 230 of them. Asterisk to everyone who's been calling, I hear you. I know you're scared. I know you're working hard. Here's what I need you to do, asterisk. Asterisk 1. Stop trying to fix the system. You can't, not without the original architecture documents. And I'm the only one who has those, asterisk. Asterisk 2. Document everything. Every outage. Every failed attempt at recovery. Every email from management. I'm going to need it. Asterisk. Asterisk 3. Stay calm. This isn't your fault, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows that. Asterisk. I'll be in touch. Clara. I sent it, then shut my laptop. Peter called 5 minutes later. You're enjoying this, aren't you? I'm not enjoying the chaos, I said. I'm enjoying the clarity. Your mother called me. She's worried. I'll call her later. She said you've been avoiding the phone. I've been avoiding Robert Vance. I paused. I'm not avoiding Mom. I'm just... processing. Yeah, processing. Peter was quiet for a moment. The sea base is fresh again. Come over tonight. We'll talk through your next move. I'll be there at 7. I spent the afternoon reading. Not code, not architecture documents, just a novel. Something I hadn't done in years. The words blurred together at first, but after an hour, I found myself relaxing. The peace didn't last. At 4 p.m., the doorbell rang. I checked the intercom. A woman in a dark suit stood outside, holding a leather briefcase. Ms. Chun. Her voice was professional. I'm Lisa Hartley, legal counsel for Vance Capital. I'd like a moment of your time. I buzzed her in. She walked into my apartment like she owned it, evaluating the space with quick, practiced eyes. 35, maybe. Expensive shoes. A wedding ring that probably cost more than my car. Ms. Chun. She set her briefcase on the coffee table. I'm here on behalf of Robert Vance to discuss your outstanding contract with Novosphere. I don't have a contract. I resigned. Actually, you haven't completed your notice period. Notice period doesn't apply to constructive dismissal. I sat down across from her. You know that. I know that. Let's skip the legal theater and get to the point. Lisa Hartley smiled. Thin, professional, entirely devoid of warmth. The point is this. Robert Vance is prepared to offer you a consulting agreement $200,000 for 6 months, full authority over technical decisions. A public apology from Director Zhang for her handling of your departure. Director Zhang was fired this morning. Her apology means nothing. Then a public apology from Robert personally. I thought about it. You want me to accept being thrown under the bus, I said, in exchange for fixing the mess you created? That's not a deal. That's a hostage situation. Ms. Chen. Here's my counter, I said, leaning forward. Robert Vance resigns as CEO. He issues a full, unqualified admission of incompetence to the board and all employees. He repays the company for every dollar of damage caused by his cousin's optimization, and I'll consider coming back on a part-time basis. Lisa Hartley's smile didn't waver. That's not going to happen. Then, I guess this conversation is over. She stood, collected her briefcase, and walked to the door. Miss Chun, you're making a mistake. No, Miss Hartley. I smiled. I'm making a point. She left. I pulled out my phone and texted my mother. Asterisk, everything is fine. I'll call tonight. Asterisk. Then I opened my laptop and started preparing the final phase of my plan. Robert Vance thought he was negotiating. He was about to find out what happens when you try to bluff someone who's already folded the entire table. Chapter 3. The call came at 11:47 p.m. Maya's voice was shaking. Clara, you need to see this. Robert just sent the source code to Sentinel Group's CTO. The entire codebase. He said it was a goodwill gesture to prove we're transparent about the outage. I sat up in bed, suddenly wide awake. He sent the source code. Every line, including the proprietary encryption protocols, including the client data handling architecture, including everything. I swung my legs over the side of the mattress and walked to my desk, booting up the laptop in one fluid motion. How long ago? 2 hours. He emailed it directly to their engineering team, said he wanted them to audit our security procedures as a show of faith. Show of faith. I laughed bitterly. He just handed them the keys to the kingdom. I know. We're already seeing unusual traffic from their IP ranges. They're poking around the endpoints. Let them. I opened my terminal and started typing. Let them poke. Let them download. Let them do whatever they want with that code. Clara, that code is worth. It's a decoy, I said. I've been waiting for this. Silence on Maya's end. A decoy. I pulled up my private server dashboard. Green indicators everywhere. Everything was running smoothly. 6 months ago, when Robert first started his optimization initiative, I created a separate branch of the codebase. Same structure, same architecture, but with one critical difference. What difference? I smiled in the dark. Every piece of sensitive logic, encryption keys, algorithmic trade secrets, client data handling protocols, was replaced with dummy functions. Valid-looking, fully functional, but completely useless outside our own sandbox environment. So, when Sentinel tries to use that code, they'll try to run it, and it'll work inside their own infrastructure, but they'll never be able to replicate our actual performance metrics. And more importantly, every time they execute one of those functions, it pings my private server with a timestamp, an IP address, and a log of exactly what they accessed. Maya let out a slow breath. You've been tracking them. Every single hit, every single query. And since Robert explicitly gave them permission to audit, I now have documented proof that Sentinel Group accessed proprietary intellectual property without authorization. That's entrapment if I'd orchestrated it. But I didn't orchestrate it. Robert did. He handed them the code. All I did was protect the real stuff. Clara, you're terrifying. I'm prepared. I closed the laptop. Now, I need you to do something for me. Anything. Call a meeting of the senior technical staff. Don't tell Robert. Don't tell anyone in management. Just the engineers who've been with us since the beginning. When? Tomorrow morning. 8 Uhr morgens. I'll send you a venue. At 7:45 a.m., I walked into a downtown coffee shop 2 blocks from Novasphere's office. 23 engineers were already seated at the back tables, nursing coffees and looking shell-shocked. My team, my people. They stood when I walked in. Clara. Sit down, everyone. I pulled up a chair and joined the circle. We don't have much time. Robert's going to find out about this meeting soon, and when he does, he's going to panic. He already is panicking, Steve said. He had a screaming fit in the executive bathroom yesterday. I heard it through the wall. He's losing his mind. Good. I nodded. That's exactly where I need him. I pulled out a stack of printed documents and passed them around. This is a full copy of the original architecture, clean and uncompromised, hosted on a private cloud that I own and control. I've been updating it in parallel with the main system for the past 4 months. Maya flipped through the pages. You built a backup of the entire infrastructure. Not a backup, I corrected. A mirror. Everything we've built, everything we've created, exists independently of Novasphere's current infrastructure. The moment Robert's system fails catastrophically, we can spin up this mirror and restore full service within 48 hours. But we'd be operating outside the company. Technically, yes. Legally, no. I smiled. Because I'm the majority shareholder, I have the authority to protect company assets. And when Robert inevitably triggers a catastrophic failure, I'll be able to step in as the board's emergency appointee and take control. Assuming the board agrees. The board will agree when Sentinel Group files a lawsuit for breach of contract, which they will once they realize the code Robert gave them is useless. You're betting everything on that. I'm betting on Robert's arrogance. I leaned back. He's already proven he'll do anything to avoid admitting failure. He'll double down, make things worse, and eventually force the board to act. And when they do, then we take back the company, on our terms. The meeting broke up at 8:45 a.m. I walked out of the coffee shop and immediately received a call from an unknown number. Clara Chen. Clara. The voice was female, cool, and familiar. It's Jessica, Robert's fiancée. I stopped walking. Jessica, Robert's fiancée. The one everyone said was the real power behind the throne. She ran a venture capital firm that had funded Robert's previous 2 failed startups. I'd like to meet. Today. No lawyers. No bullshit. Where? The Mandarin Oriental. Roof bar. 2 p.m. She hung up without another word. I pocketed my phone and continued walking. Jessica was the wild card. Everyone knew Robert was a puppet. Jessica was the one pulling the strings. She'd funded his Harvard MBA, connected him with the investors who'd bought into Novasphere, and installed him as CEO precisely because he was easy to control. If I was going to win this, I needed to neutralize her. The roof bar at the Mandarin Oriental was exactly what I'd expected. Glass walls, panoramic views, and a drinks menu that started at $30. Jessica was already there, sitting at a corner table with a glass of white wine and the kind of minimalist designer suit that probably cost more than my first car. She was 43, impeccably groomed, with the flat effect of someone who'd been negotiating deals since she was old enough to hold a trust fund. Clara. She gestured to the seat across from her. Thank you for coming. I sat down. I assume this isn't a social call. Robert is losing control of the situation. She didn't mince words. Sentinel Group just called him. They're demanding a full technical audit within 72 hours. If they don't get it, they're suing for breach of contract. And you want me to fix it? I want to understand what you're planning. She studied me over her wine glass. You've been quiet. Too quiet. You're not the type to just walk away. You don't know me very well. I know you've been building something in the background. I know you've been meeting with your old team. I know you have a backup system running somewhere outside the company. I didn't react. You're going to try to take control, aren't you? Jessica continued. You're going to wait until the crisis peaks, then step in as the hero and force Robert out. Interesting theory. It's not a theory. It's what I do in your position. She leaned forward. But here's the thing, Clara. I'm not Robert. I'm not stupid, and I'm not emotional. I'm offering you a deal. What kind of deal? You step back, stay retired, let Robert take the fall. I'm not protecting him anymore. In exchange, I'll make sure you keep your equity, your reputation, and a generous severance package to never talk about any of this publicly. I was silent for a moment. And if I refuse, then I'll make your life very difficult. She smiled, but there was no warmth. I know people that I can make sure you never work in the city again. I can make sure your consulting business, whatever you're planning, gets buried under so many legal challenges that you won't be able to afford the air you breathe. I see. Do we have a deal? I thought about my mother, about the condo, about everything I'd worked for over the last decade. Then I thought about Robert sitting in his corner office, smug and incompetent, making decisions that destroyed people's livelihoods. No, I said. We don't have a deal. Jessica's eyes narrowed. That's a mistake. It's the first correct decision I've made in 3 years. I stood up. You have until midnight tonight to withdraw Robert as CEO. Otherwise, I'm going to execute my backup plan and you're going to lose everything. Clara. Jessica. I paused. I've been underestimated my whole life. It'd be why the boys in engineering school who didn't think I could code. Be why the investors who didn't think I could build a business. By Robert, who thought $60,000 would break me. I looked her directly in the eye. Don't make the same mistake. I walked out. That evening, I had dinner at Peter's restaurant. I met Jessica today, I told him between bites of fresh sea base. Robert's fiancée? The venture capitalist. Same. I drank my sake. She tried to threaten me. Did it work? She doesn't realize I'm not scared of rich people. I smiled. I'm rich too, remember? Peter laughed. You really are something else, Clara. Mom says I get it from my father. Your father would be proud. He refilled my glass. So, what's the next move? I pulled out my phone and showed him the email I drafted. Midnight tonight, I'm sending this to every shareholder, board member, and major client. It's a full account of Robert's mismanagement, including the source code leak and the decoy architecture. I'm attaching documentation from the mirrored system, showing exactly what Sentinel Group accessed. And then I wait. The board will call an emergency meeting within 24 hours. Robert will be forced to resign, and I'll be appointed interim CEO. Peter was quiet for a long moment. That's the plan? That's the plan. You're really going to go back to that place? I set down my chopsticks. No, I said. I'm going to go back, fix the system, and hire someone else to run it. I've done my time. I've built my thing. Now I want to spend my life doing things that matter. Like what? I reached across the table and touched his hand. Like finishing this dinner. Like checking on my mother. Like figuring out what comes next. Not for Novosphere, but for me. Peter's eyes softened. Clara Chin, he said quietly. You're the most practical woman I've ever met. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just promise me one thing. What's that? When this is over, you'll take a vacation. A real one. No phone. No email. Just you and the ocean. I smiled. Deal. At 11:47 p.m., I opened my laptop, connected to the private server, and watched the logs scroll past. Sentinel Group had accessed the decoy code 47 times in the past 6 hours. Each time, their CTO had logged in, run diagnostic tests, and tried to reverse engineer the proprietary algorithms. Every attempt failed, because the algorithms weren't there. At 11:52 p.m., my phone buzzed. Asterisk Clara, it's Maya. We just got word from Sentinel Group. They're filing a motion to freeze Novosphere's assets. They're claiming fraudulent representation of technical capabilities. Asterisk. Good. I typed back. Asterisk, that's exactly what I needed. Asterisk. Asterisk, good. Asterisk. Asterisk, yes. Because when they try to freeze the assets, they'll discover that Robert's been sitting on $40 million in unspent venture capital, money he was supposed to use for R&D, but instead parked in offshore accounts. Maya didn't reply immediately. Asterisk, how do you know that? Asterisk. Asterisk, I'm the majority shareholder, Maya. I've had access to the financials this whole time. Robert just didn't think I'd check. Asterisk. Asterisk, you're terrifying. Asterisk. I'm Federal. Asterisk. At 11:58 p.m., I hit send on the mass email. 2 minutes later, my phone started ringing. Robert, Jessica, the board chairman, the head of investor relations. I let them all go to voicemail. At midnight, I poured myself a glass of whiskey, walked to the window, and watched the city lights flicker below. It was only a matter of time now. The system was going to fall. And when it did, I'd be the one holding all the pieces. The beginning of her new life with Peter. Chapter 4. The email hit at midnight like a bomb. By 7 a.m., my phone had melted down completely. 217 missed calls, 93 text messages, 48 emails. I ignored all of them and showered, made coffee, and called my mother. Mom, I'm going to be on the news today. Probably. Are you in trouble? No, I'm winning. Good. She paused. Your father always said winning quietly is better than winning loudly. I'll try to keep it quiet. Don't try too hard. Sometimes people need to see it. I laughed and hung up. At 8 a.m., I walked into Novosphere's headquarters for the first time in 6 days. The lobby was chaos. Reporters clustered near the security desk, cameras raised. Employees hurried past with coffee cups and shell-shocked expressions. Security waved me through without a word. The boardroom on the 27th floor was packed. 12 directors, 4 senior investors. Robert Vance, pale and sweating at the head of the table. Jessica, seated beside him, her face an expressionless mask. And at the far end, an empty chair. Mimi. Clara. The board chairman, a gray-haired man named David Morrow, stood up. Thank you for coming. I didn't have a choice. I walked to the empty chair and sat down. You called an emergency meeting. I'm the majority shareholder. Legally, I have to be here. Let's cut the formalities. Robert's voice was sharp. You sent a defamatory email to every stakeholder in this company. It wasn't defamatory. IT was documentation. I pulled a file from my bag and slid it across the table. Full records of every management decision you've made in the past 6 months. Every email. Every unauthorized change to the infrastructure. Every time you overrode my team's technical recommendations. Robert didn't open the file. He didn't need to. You've been building a shadow company, he said, operating outside Novosphere's infrastructure. That's breach of fiduciary duty. No, Robert, that's insurance. I turned to the board. 3 weeks ago, when I resigned, I left behind a functional system. In 6 days, under Robert's leadership, that system has suffered 11 major outages, lost 3 key clients, and most critically, leaked proprietary source code to a competitor. The board murmured. I didn't leak anything, Robert said. I shared the code for audit purposes. You shared code that wasn't ours. I cut in. That's the part you don't understand. The code you sent to Sentinel Group was a decoy. Every proprietary algorithm, every encryption key, every trade secret, I'd already moved them to a separate, secure environment. What you sent them was useless. The room went very quiet. You moved company assets offsite? David Morrow asked, his voice careful. I protected them against exactly this kind of catastrophe. I pulled out another document. Here's the transfer log, dated 6 months ago. Every move was logged. Every access was recorded. And before you ask, it's fully legal. A S majority shareholder. I have the authority to safeguard intellectual property from reckless management. Robert's face had gone from pale to gray. You set me up, he breathed. I gave you enough rope. I leaned back. You decided to hang yourself. The board voted at 9:47 a.m. 7-5 in favor of removing Robert Vance as CEO. 2 abstentions. Jessica stood up the moment the vote was announced. This is ridiculous, she said. Robert is the CEO the market trusted. The market trusted me, I said. I built the product and I hired the team that I know every line of code, every client relationship, every financial projection. Robert was a CEO in name only, and we all know it. Jessica's eyes flickered, just for a moment, and I saw calculation behind them. What do you want, Clara? I looked at her, then at the board. I want Robert out, immediately, and I want full control of the company as interim CEO for the next 60 days. And after that, I'm going to hire a permanent replacement. Someone qualified. Someone who actually understands the business. Who? I have a candidate in mind. I turned to the board. Jennifer Park, former CTO of Nexus Systems. She's currently consulting, and she's already expressed interest. She's 10 times the leader Robert ever was. The board murmured again. Jennifer Park was a known quantity, respected, capable, and entirely independent of my influence. You've already lined this up, David Morrow said. I've been preparing for this day for 6 months. I'm not going to apologize for being ready. At 10 a.m., Robert Vance was escorted out of the building by security. He didn't fight, didn't even speak, just walked past me with dead eyes, shoulders slumped, the shell of a man who'd never been told he couldn't have something. Jessica followed him out. He'll be fine, she said to me in the hallway. He's rich. He's connected. He'll land somewhere else. He'll land nowhere, I said, because I'm going to make sure every investor in the city knows exactly what he did. You can't destroy him that easily. Watch me. She stared at me for a long moment, then turned and walked away. The power was gone from her stride. I spent the next 4 hours in the server room. Not on the phone. Not in meetings. Actually in the server room. My sleeves rolled up, fingers flying across the terminal. Maya found me at 2 p.m. Clara, you've been in here for 4 hours. The media is calling. The investors are calling. Everyone wants to talk to the new interim CEO. Tell them I'm busy. Busy doing what? I pointed at the screen. Rebuilding the load balancers. Re-indexing the databases. Rolling back Robert's cousins' optimizations. Basically, I'm undoing everything he broke. You could have a team do that. I could, but I want to prove something. Maya leaned against the doorframe. What's that? I looked up from my screen. That I can still do this. That I didn't stop being an engineer just because I became a manager. That the people who work here, my people, know I'm willing to get my hands dirty. Maya smiled. That's why they respect you, you know. I know. By 9 p.m., the system was back online. 70% capacity. Enough to handle the urgent requests, keep the remaining clients satisfied, and buy us time for a full recovery. I sent a company-wide email. Asterisk, the system is stable. We're not out of the woods, but we're on the right path. Every engineer who stayed through the chaos will get a bonus, equal to 1 month's salary for their loyalty. I'll announce the full compensation package tomorrow. Asterisk. Asterisk for now. Go home. Rest. We've earned it. Asterisk. Clara. My phone buzzed. Peter. Asterisk, you're done for the day? Asterisk. Asterisk just finished. Asterisk. Asterisk, come over. I made you something. Asterisk. Asterisk, on my way. Asterisk. Peter's restaurant was empty, dark except for the kitchen lights. He met me at the door with a glass of wine and a tired smile. You look exhausted. I feel amazing. I took the glass and drank. I just fired a CEO, saved a company, and restored a multi-million-dollar system from a decoy backup that I created myself. Another glass of wine, and you might burst. Probably. He led me to a small table in the back, where a single dish sat under a warming lamp. Scallopini. Veal, with lemon and capers. Your grandmother's recipe, adapted. I sat down and took a bite. It was perfect. I could get used to this, I said. Getting used to being fed by a 60-year-old former chef? Getting used to being taken care of. I set down my fork. I've been taking care of everyone else for so long. The NY mother, the NY team, the company that I forgot what it felt like to just be taken care of. Peter reached across the table and took my hand. Then let me take care of you. Not forever, just as long as you need. I looked at him, really looked. The gray temples, the kind eyes, the hands that had cooked meals for me for 3 years, never asking for anything in return. What if I need forever? I said. He blinked, surprised. Clara. Don't answer now. I squeezed his hand. Just know that I'm serious. I'm done being afraid of what comes next. I'm done being cautious. I built a company from nothing. I faced down a hostile takeover. I think I can handle a relationship. Peter laughed, a warm, startled laugh. You're something else, Clara Chin. I know. My mother called the next morning. I saw you on the news. Mom, I told you I was going to be on. You look tired, Clara. Are you sleeping? Not really. Come over for lunch. I'll make your grandmother's noodles. I smiled into the phone. I'll be there at noon. She was having a good day. Clear eyes, sharp memory, the same fierce energy she'd had when she was younger. We ate noodles in her tiny apartment, and she told me stories about my father. He would have been so proud of you, she said. He never got to see you become the person you are. He saw enough. I set down my chopsticks. He saw me get into MIT. He saw me graduate. He saw me start my first job. He saw you work too hard, she said. He'd want you to slow down now. Mom. No. She pointed at me. You listened, you're 38 years old. You have more money than you'll ever need. You have a company that you just saved. You have a man who looks at you like you hung the moon. You know about Peter? Peter Chen. She laughed. I've known about Peter for 3 years, Clara. He calls me every week. He sends me flowers. He asks how I'm doing. He's here. He's been calling you? Every Sunday. She smiled. Your father would have liked him. I felt something shift in my chest. Something I'd been holding back for years, maybe. Mom, I said, I think I'm going to change my life. Good. Not dramatically, not all at once, but smaller, slower. More time for you, for Peter, for myself. That's a good plan. She reached across the table and patted my hand. Now finish your noodles. They're getting cold. 3 weeks later, Jennifer Park officially took over as CEO of Novosphere. I stayed on as a consultant, technically. In practice, I showed up twice a week, answered questions, and left by 3 p.m. The board was happy. The investors were happy. The employees were happy. And I was happy. On the Friday after Jennifer's first full week, I walked into Peter's restaurant and found a small box waiting on my table. What's this? Open it. I opened it. Inside was a key, a brass, old-fashioned key, the kind you'd use for a front door. It's a house, Peter said. Not a huge one. Just a small place by the coast. 3 bedrooms. A big kitchen. A garden where you can grow tomatoes and drink wine in the summer. I looked up at him. Peter, you said you wanted to slow down. He sat across from me. I thought we could slow down together. I didn't cry. I was too happy for that. But I did reach across the table and hold his hand. I've never had a house, I said. Well, now you do, and I'm going to cook you dinner every night. Every night. Except Thursdays. I'm going fishing on Thursdays. I laughed. And for the first time in a decade, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. The end.